The imperial palace floated in the dark void of space like a jewel. It orbited the planet Thesara Prime, the heart of the Valthran Empire. Inside the palace, Empress Liaravon stood before a large window, staring at the stars. Her skin was pale blue, and her blood glowed through her veins like living light. She had ruled for 300 years, watching empires rise and fall across the galaxy. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, her son was dying. Prince Kaelrin lay in the medical chamber 3 floors below. The finest doctors in the Empire surrounded his bed, but they could do nothing. The prince suffered from void sickness, a rare disease that turned crystalline blood solid. It was always fatal. The doctors had given him 3 days to live. The Empress pressed her hand against the cold glass. Her blood glowed bright gold with grief, a color only visible when Valthran felt deep emotion. She had lost friends, soldiers, and advisors over the centuries. But losing her only child was different. It was a pain she had never imagined. "Your Majesty?" A voice came from behind her. She turned to see Chancellor Vexthor, her oldest advisor. His crystalline blood glowed dim purple with concern. "The trade summit begins in 2 hours," he said softly. "Will you attend?" The Empress wanted to refuse. How could she sit through boring trade discussions when her son was dying? But she was the Empress. She had duties. She nodded slowly. "I will attend," she said. Her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. 2 hours later, the grand hall filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Representatives from 20 different species had come to discuss trade routes and mining rights. The Valthran Empire was powerful, and everyone wanted to make deals with them. Among the delegates was a small group from Earth. They wore simple blue uniforms with a medical symbol on their shoulders. The leader was Dr. Tae Kim, a man in his 40s with kind eyes and graying hair. Next to him stood Dr. Na Choi, a younger woman who carried a data tablet and took notes on everything. The Valthran barely acknowledged the humans. Earth was a young species, only a few centuries into space travel. They had nothing the Empire needed. The humans sat in the back of the hall, mostly ignored. Tae watched the Empress as she entered. Even from a distance, he could see something was wrong. Her movements were stiff, mechanical. Her blood glowed dull gray instead of the bright colors he had read about in his research. She looked like someone going through the motions of life without actually living. "She's grieving," Na whispered to him. "How do you know?" Tae asked. "Look at her blood. That gray color. I read about it last night. Valthran blood turns gray when they experience deep sadness." Tae studied the Empress more carefully. Na was right. This was a woman in pain. The summit dragged on for hours. Trade agreements were discussed. Mining rights were negotiated. The humans said nothing. They were only there as observers, hoping to learn and maybe make a few minor deals. When the summit finally ended, most delegates left quickly. Tae and Na stayed behind, reviewing their notes. That's when they heard it. A sound from the corridor beyond the hall. Someone was crying. They shouldn't have investigated. It wasn't their business. But Tae was a doctor before he was a diplomat. He couldn't ignore suffering. He moved toward the sound, with Na following close behind. They found a small observation room. Through the half-open door, they saw the Empress. She sat alone on a bench, her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with sobs. Her blood glowed so bright gold that it lit up the entire room. In front of her, a holographic display showed medical charts and vital signs that were clearly failing. Na gasped softly. The sound was small, but in the quiet room it was enough. The Empress's head snapped up. Her eyes locked onto them. For a moment, fear shot through Tae. He had just seen the most powerful ruler in this part of the galaxy in her most vulnerable moment. This could mean death for both of them. But the Empress didn't call for guards. She didn't threaten them. She just stared, her glowing tears running down her face. "I'm sorry," Tae said quickly. "We didn't mean to intrude." "We heard someone in distress." The Empress wiped her face. "You are the humans from Earth, the medical delegation." "Yes, Your Majesty." "I'm Dr. Tae Kim. This is Dr. Na Choi." The Empress looked at them for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice breaking. "My son is dying. The finest minds in the Empire cannot save him. In 3 days he will be gone." Tae's heart ached for her. He understood that pain. He had lost his own daughter to illness years ago. It was what drove him to become a better doctor, to save others from that same grief. "May I see his medical data?" The words left Tae's mouth before he could think about them. The Empress laughed, but it was a bitter sound. You are human. Your species has barely left your home system. What could you possibly do that Valthran medicine cannot? It was true. The Valthran were thousands of years ahead of humanity in most technology. But Tay had spent his career studying alien biology. He had seen things that surprised him before. Probably nothing, Tay admitted, but I have nothing to lose by looking. And respectfully, Your Majesty, neither do you. The Empress stared at him. In her eyes, Tay saw a mother's desperate hope fighting against a ruler's pride. Finally, she tapped her wrist device. The medical charts from the hologram transferred to Na's tablet. You have until morning, the Empress said. If you waste my time with false hope, you will regret it. She stood and walked past them, leaving Tay and Na alone with the data. They rushed back to their quarters. Na spread the medical files across 3 screens while Tay paced back and forth, studying every detail. The disease was brutal. The prince's crystalline blood cells were hardening, turning from liquid to solid. His veins were filling with crystal shards. Every hour his body had less blood flowing through it. Eventually his heart would stop. Hours passed. Tay and Na barely spoke, too focused on the data. Coffee cups piled up on the desk. The station's artificial night cycle came and went. Then, just as the artificial dawn began to brighten their window, Na sat up straight. Tay, she said quietly, look at this. She pulled up 2 sets of data side by side. On the left was Prince Kael'ren's blood work. On the right was something from Earth's medical archives. Crystalline blood syndrome, Na said. It hit Earth 70 years ago. Killed millions before we found a cure. Tay leaned closer, his heart racing. The patterns were nearly identical. The way the cells crystallized. The progression of the disease. Even the genetic markers were similar. We cured this, Tay whispered. We know how to fix it. They worked for another hour, adapting the human treatment to Valthran biology. It would require gene therapy, nanobots, and synthetic blood cells, all things humanity had developed through desperate necessity. When morning came, they requested an audience with the Empress. She granted it immediately, though her expression showed she expected nothing. Tay stood before her throne, his hands shaking slightly. This moment would change everything. Either he would save a life and bridge 2 species, or he would fail and doom humanity to shame. Your Majesty, he said clearly, we've seen this disease before, and we can save your son. The throne room fell silent. Every Valthran official present stared at Tay as if he had just claimed he could move planets with his bare hands. The Empress leaned forward on her throne, her crystalline blood flickering between gold hope and gray doubt. Explain, she commanded. Tay stepped forward, and Na activated a holographic display. 2 sets of medical data appeared in the air between them and the throne. They rotated slowly, showing the crystalline patterns in diseased blood cells. 70 years ago, Earth was hit by a disease we called crystalline blood syndrome, Tay explained. It killed millions. Our blood cells would harden, just like your sons are doing now. The genetic markers are almost identical. High Physician Morthal pushed forward from the crowd of advisors. He was tall even for a Valthran, and his blood glowed angry red. He had served the Empire for 2 centuries and trained every doctor in the palace. Impossible, Morthal said sharply. Humans and Valthrans share no common biology. Our blood is crystalline, yours is iron-based. This is coincidence, nothing more. Na spoke up, her voice steady despite her nervousness. The underlying mechanism is the same. Both diseases attack the genetic code that keeps blood cells flexible. They force the cells to crystallize prematurely. And you claim you cured this? Another physician asked mockingly. Valthran medicine has existed for 10,000 years. If we cannot cure it, how could humans? Tay had expected this reaction. Pride was universal, regardless of species. Because we had no choice, Tay said simply. When crystalline blood syndrome hit Earth, we were dying by the millions. We didn't have 10,000 years of success to fall back on. We had desperation. So we tried everything, even the impossible, and we found an answer. The Empress raised her hand, silencing the murmuring officials. What is your cure? Gene therapy combined with medical nanobots and synthetic blood cell replacement, Na explained. We rewrite the faulty genetic code, use nanobots to repair damaged cells, and replace the crystallized blood with laboratory-grown healthy cells. Morthal laughed cruelly. Nanobots? Your human nanobots are primitive at best. They could never handle the complexity of Valthran crystalline blood. Our nanobots are different from yours, Tay countered. They're designed to adapt and improvise. They learn from their environment. Your medicine is precise and perfect when everything goes according to plan. Ours is messy but flexible. It has to be because human biology fights back against everything. The room erupted in argument. Half the physicians present insisted this was a dangerous gamble. The other half were curious but skeptical. Chancellor Vexthor worried about the political implications. If humans saved the prince where Valthran medicine failed, what would that do to the Empire's reputation? Through it all, the Empress sat silently, her blood swirling with conflicting colors. Finally, she stood. Everyone fell quiet. How long does my son have? She asked Morthal directly. The High Physician bowed his head. 40 hours at most, Your Majesty. Perhaps less. And what chance does Valthran medicine give him? None, Morthal admitted quietly. The disease has progressed too far. The Empress turned to Tay. Her eyes were hard, but behind them he saw a mother's desperate love. If you fail, Dr. Kim, your entire species will be held accountable. Do you understand? This will not be seen as one doctor's failure, but as human treachery. Earth itself may face consequences. Tay swallowed hard. He hadn't considered that, but when he thought about Prince Kaelrin dying alone in that medical chamber, he knew he couldn't walk away. I understand, Your Majesty, but I also understand that a mother is about to lose her child. That's all that matters to me right now. Something shifted in the Empress's expression. Her blood glowed warmer. You have my permission, she said. One attempt. But you will need equipment, yes? Yes, Your Majesty. We need specialized medical nanobots and gene therapy supplies. They're on our medical ship, the HMCS Mercy. It's currently 3 days away at maximum speed. 3 days? The Empress's blood flared bright with distress. My son has 40 hours. Na stepped forward quickly. We can ask them to take a shortcut through the Theta-7 wormhole. It's unstable and dangerous, but it would cut the travel time to 18 hours. Morthal shook his head. No ship can navigate that wormhole safely. It would be suicide. Human ships have done it before, Na said, though her voice wavered slightly. She knew the statistics. Only 60% of ships made it through that wormhole intact. The Empress didn't hesitate. Send the message. Tell them to come immediately, whatever the risk. Within minutes, the message was transmitted. On the far side of the sector, Captain Juan Park received it aboard the HMCS Mercy. He was a veteran of Earth's Medical Expeditionary Corps, gray-haired and steady-handed. When he read the message, he called his crew to the bridge. They need us to risk the Theta-7 wormhole, Juan told his crew. It's dangerous. We could be destroyed. But there's a dying kid who needs our help, and we're the only ones who can get there in time. His crew didn't hesitate. They were doctors and medics, every one of them. They had all taken oaths to save lives. Let's go save that kid, said Dr. Sol-Yoon, the ship's nanomedicine specialist. Juan smiled and turned to his pilot. Take us through. Back at the Imperial Palace, Tay and Na prepared everything they could with the limited equipment they had. They studied Prince Kaelrin's latest scans. The young Valthran prince was barely conscious now, his body racked with pain as his blood turned to crystal inside his veins. The Empress visited her son's chamber. She held his hand gently, careful not to hurt him. Kaelrin's blood glowed very faint blue, barely visible. Mother, he whispered, don't be sad. I'm not afraid. Tears ran down the Empress's face. Humans are coming to help you. Strange little creatures from a young world. They say they can save you. Kaelrin managed a weak smile. Humans? Father used to tell me stories about them. Said they were survivors. Stubborn. Very stubborn, the Empress agreed, thinking of Tay's determined face. 18 hours passed like torture. Every hour Tay checked the prince's vital signs. Every hour they got worse. The medical chamber's monitors showed his blood crystallizing further. His heart struggled to pump the thickening fluid through his veins. Then finally a message arrived. The Mercy had made it through the wormhole. They were here. The Valthran fleet watched in amazement as the human medical ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The ship's hull showed scorch marks from its dangerous journey, but it was intact. Within minutes, Captain Juan and his medical team were being shuttled to the palace. They rushed into the medical bay carrying cases of equipment. Dr. Sol-Yoon immediately began unpacking the medical nanobots. Dr. Young Kang set up the gene therapy station. Na coordinated with them, updating them on the prince's current condition. Tay stood at the center of it all, reviewing the procedure one last time in his mind. His hands were steady, but his heart raced. Everything came down to the next few hours. The Empress entered the medical chamber with Morthal and a dozen other Volthran physicians. Guards lined the walls. The tension was suffocating. As Tay approached the prince's bed, Morthal leaned close and whispered so only Ty could hear, "If he dies, human, neither you nor your team will leave this room alive." Tay met his eyes without flinching. "Then I'd better not let him die." He looked down at Prince Kael'ren. The young Valthran's eyes were closed, his breathing shallow. Tay placed his hand gently on the prince's shoulder. "Hold on," Tay whispered. "We're going to fix this." He turned to his team. "Let's begin." The medical chamber hummed with energy as human and Valthran equipment powered up side by side. Tay stood at the head of Prince Kael'ren's bed, surrounded by his team. Now monitored the computer systems. Sol prepared the nanobots. Young Kang readied the gene therapy. Huan stood ready to assist wherever needed. Around them, Valthran physicians watched with crossed arms and doubtful expressions. High Physician Morthal observed every movement with sharp, critical eyes. The Empress stood in the corner, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were pale. Her blood swirled with anxious purple light. "Beginning stage 1, Tay announced. "Nanobot deployment." Sol stepped forward with a syringe containing billions of microscopic robots. Under a magnifier, they looked like tiny silver stars. She injected them carefully into the prince's primary blood vessel. The Valthran physicians leaned closer, watching the monitors. The nanobots spread through Kael'ren's body, each one seeking out crystallized blood cells. What they saw made several of them gasp. "Impossible," one physician muttered. "Those nanobots are adapting in real time." "That's what they're designed to do," Sol explained. "Human nanobots can't be programmed for every possibility, so we teach them to learn instead. They analyze their environment and adjust their behavior." The nanobots began their work, carefully breaking down the crystal formations cell by cell. On the monitors, everyone could see the prince's blood slowly starting to flow more freely. But it was slow work. Too slow. "His blood pressure is dropping," Na called out, watching the vital signs. "Heart rate increasing. The disease is progressing faster than the nanobots can work." Morthal stepped forward. "You're failing. Stop this before you kill him." "We're not failing," Tay said calmly. "We're just getting started." Young begin gene therapy. Young Kang activated his equipment. A soft blue light filled a chamber containing the specially modified genetic sequences. These would rewrite the faulty code in Kael'ren's DNA, stopping new cells from crystallizing. The gene therapy was designed for humans, Young explained as he worked. But Na's algorithms adapted it for Valthran biology. It should integrate with his cellular structure. "Should?" Morthal repeated. "You're experimenting on the heir to the throne?" Tay didn't look away from his work. "All medicine is experimentation until it succeeds. You know that." Young injected the gene therapy. It spread through Kael'ren's body, seeking out the genetic markers that caused the disease. On the cellular level, tiny molecular machines began rewriting the prince's DNA. One base pair at a time. For 10 minutes, everything seemed to be working. The monitors showed improvement. The crystallization was slowing. The Empress's blood brightened with hope. Then alarms started blaring. "Immune response," Na shouted. "His body is attacking the nanobots." The monitors showed chaos. Kael'ren's aggressive Valthran immune system had recognized the nanobots as invaders. White blood cells swarmed them by the millions. The nanobots were being destroyed faster than they could work. "Shut it down," Morthal demanded. "You're killing him." Guards moved forward, hands on their weapons. The Empress looked torn between hope and horror. But Tay held up his hand. His voice was steady, almost eerily calm. "Wait, this is expected." "Expected?" Morthal's blood flared bright red with anger. "You expected this?" "Valthran immune systems are much stronger than human ones," Tay explained, his hands moving quickly over the controls. "We knew they would attack." Sol reprogrammed the nanobots. "Protocol 7. Sol's fingers flew across her console. On it, "What is Protocol 7? The Empress asked, her voice tight with fear as she watched her son's vital signs deteriorate. "Something we learned the hard way," Tay said. "Human medicine used to try to suppress immune systems during treatments, but we kept losing patients. Then we realized we were thinking about it wrong. The immune system isn't the enemy. It's trying to protect the body. We just have to convince it we're friendly." On the monitors, the nanobots suddenly changed. They began emitting chemical signals identical to those produced by Kyle Ren's own healthy cells. It was like they were showing identification badges, proving they belonged. The change was immediate and dramatic. The white blood cells stopped attacking. The immune system recognized the nanobots as part of the body. Within seconds, the alarm stopped. The Valthran physicians stared in stunned silence. Even Morthal had no words. "That's impossible," another Valthran doctor finally said. "To reprogram nanobots in real time while they're inside a living body. Our technology can't do that." "Ours couldn't either until we were desperate enough to try," Juan said quietly. "Desperation makes for good innovation." With the immune system no longer fighting them, the nanobots worked faster. The gene therapy spread unhindered. Tay moved to stage 3. "Beginning blood transfusion," he announced. Nay had spent hours creating synthetic blood based on samples from the prince's healthy cells taken before he got sick. It was grown in a lab, cell by cell, each one perfect and uncorrupted. Now they would replace the crystallized blood with this healthy version. The transfusion was delicate work. Too fast and they would shock the prince's system. Too slow and he would die before they finished. Tay worked with steady hands, his years of experience guiding him. Hours passed. The humans worked without stopping, calling out readings and adjustments to each other. The Valthran physicians, despite their initial skepticism, began offering suggestions. Morthal himself pointed out a better injection site for one of the treatments. Slowly, the two groups began working together. The Empress never left the room. She watched every moment, her blood shifting through a rainbow of emotions. When things looked bad, she glowed dark with fear. When progress was made, she brightened with hope. "His core temperature is stabilizing. Now reported after the 6th hour. Blood pressure improving," Young added an hour later. "Crystallization has stopped in his primary vessels," Sol said during hour 8. But the prince still hadn't woken up. His vital signs were better, but he remained unconscious, his body exhausted from the ordeal. Tay checked the final readings. Everything looked good, but until Kael'ren opened his eyes, they wouldn't know for sure if the treatment had worked completely. "Now we wait," Tay said, stepping back from the bed. The tension in the room was unbearable. Even the guards seemed to hold their breath. The Empress moved to her son's bedside, taking his hand gently. "Kael'ren," she whispered, "please come back to me." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then slowly, the prince's blood began to glow. It was faint at first, just a dim flicker of blue light. But it grew brighter, stronger. The healthy azure color of Valthran life. Prince Kael'ren's eyes opened. "Mother?" His voice was weak but clear. The Empress sobbed, pressing his hand to her face. Her blood blazed brilliant gold, so bright it filled the entire room with light. Around them, the Valthran physicians stood in shock. The guards lowered their weapons. Even Morthal's stern expression cracked, showing wonder. "How do you feel?" Tay asked gently. The prince looked at him, then at the other humans. "Tired, but the pain is gone. The crushing weight in my chest, it's gone." He managed a small smile. "You're human?" "We are," Tay confirmed. "Thank you," Kael'ren said simply. The Empress turned to face Tay. Tears still ran down her face, but she was smiling. It was the first real smile anyone had seen from her in days. "You gave me back my son," she said. "You gave me back my future. I don't know how to repay this debt." Tay was exhausted, running on nothing but adrenaline and coffee, but he felt a deep satisfaction. This was why he became a doctor. Not for glory or recognition, but for moments like this. For the chance to keep families together. "No debt necessary, Your Majesty," he said. "We're just happy we could help." But the Empress shook her head. In Valthran culture, a life debt is sacred, especially when the life saved is the heir to the throne. She stood tall, her royal bearing returning now that her son was safe. "Tomorrow you will come to the throne room. Your fate and humanity's will be decided, for you have changed everything." Morthal approached Tay as the Empress left with her recovering son. The High Physician's expression was complicated, mixing shame with respect. "You humbled me today, human," Morthal said quietly. "I thought I knew everything about medicine. I was wrong. Your methods are strange, chaotic even, but they work." "Different doesn't mean wrong," Tay replied. "Just different," Morthal nodded slowly. "I will remember that." As the medical team finally left the chamber, exhausted but victorious, none of them knew that their actions today had just changed the course of galactic history. The grand throne room of the Valthran Empire was built to inspire awe. Crystal pillars stretched up hundreds of feet, each one glowing with soft light. The ceiling showed a perfect hologram of the galaxy, with all 200 systems of the Empire marked in blue. Normally, the room held a few dozen officials at most. Today, it was packed with thousands. Delegates from every corner of the Empire had arrived overnight. News of Prince Caileron's miraculous recovery had spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Everyone wanted to witness what would happen next. Tay stood at the center of the room with his team. Na stood to his left, nervously gripping her data tablet. Sol and Young flanked his right. Captain Huan stood behind them, his military bearing giving them all confidence. They wore their simple blue medical uniforms, looking small and plain, surrounded by the elaborate clothing of alien dignitaries. Around them, the crowd murmured in dozens of languages. Some looked at the humans with curiosity, others with suspicion, a few with open hostility. "What do you think she'll do?" Na whispered to Tay. "I honestly don't know," Tay admitted. "We saved her son, but we also proved that Valthran medicine isn't as superior as they believed. That's going to have political consequences." The great doors opened and the room fell silent. The Empress entered, wearing her full ceremonial robes that glowed with embedded crystals. Behind her walked Prince Caileron. The young prince was still weak, leaning on a support staff, but he was alive and walking. The crowd gasped. They took their places on the raised throne platform. The Empress's blood glowed bright gold as she looked at her son, then out at the assembled masses. "We are here to address a matter of great importance," the Empress announced, her voice carrying throughout the massive room. "The humans from Earth saved my son when our own medicine could not. This debt must be addressed." Chancellor Vexthor stepped forward. He was an old Valthran, his blood dim with age but his mind still sharp. "Your Majesty, if I may speak." The Empress nodded. "The humans have done us a great service," Vexthor said carefully, "but we must consider the implications. They now know Valthran biology intimately. They know our weaknesses. Some argue this makes them a security risk. There are voices calling for their quarantine." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Tay felt his stomach tighten. They had saved the prince and now they were being threatened? But then High Physician Morthal stepped forward. The stern doctor who had opposed them now spoke in their defense. "Chancellor, with respect, you misunderstand," Morthal said. "Yes, the humans have humbled us. They showed that our medicine, for all its precision and history, has blind spots. But they also taught us something valuable." He turned to face the crowd. "For 10,000 years we have believed our way was the only way. We have been proud, certain of our superiority. The humans showed us that different approaches have value. They didn't succeed because they're superior to us. They succeeded because they have struggled in ways we haven't." He gestured to Tay and his team. "Their species has faced extinction multiple times. Disease, war, environmental collapse. They've been knocked down again and again. And each time they got back up and learned from it. That struggle gave them something we lack: adaptability, creativity, the willingness to try the impossible." The crowd was listening now, really listening. Morthal continued, "We should not quarantine them out of fear. We should learn from them. And perhaps we should teach them as well. Knowledge shared grows stronger." The Empress stood. Her blood glowed bright blue with determination. "High Physician Morthal speaks wisdom," she said. "I have decided to invoke the law of life debt, not used in 1,000 years. Dr. Tay Kim saved my son's life. By ancient law, I owe him a debt that cannot be repaid. This debt extends to all of humanity." The room erupted in whispers. The law of life debt was legendary, spoken of in history books but never actually used in living memory. "But I will not repay this debt with gold or territory." The Empress continued, "Those are temporary things. Instead, I offer something lasting: partnership." She gestured and a hologram appeared in the center of the room. It showed medical facilities, research stations, and ships. "I propose the Valthran Human Medical Alliance," the Empress declared. "Human doctors will work alongside Valthran physicians. We will share our knowledge freely. Humanity will gain access to our medical databases spanning 10,000 years. We will gain their innovative spirit and adaptive techniques." She paused, letting the idea sink in. Then she continued, "Furthermore, I am opening 50 Valthran systems to human settlement and trade. Humans will be granted the same trading rights as Empire citizens. And I invite human representatives to sit on our Council of Sciences." The room exploded in debate. Some cheered. Others protested loudly. It was the most dramatic shift in Valthran policy in centuries. Ambassador Mi-Han, the head of Earth's diplomatic delegation, stepped forward. She was an older woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had been a diplomat for 40 years and had seen many strange things, but nothing like this. "Your Majesty," Mi said, bowing respectfully, "on behalf of Earth and humanity, I accept your generous offer. This alliance will benefit both our peoples." The Empress smiled. "There is one more thing I ask." She turned to Tay directly. "Dr. Kim, I request that my son, when he is fully recovered, visit Earth. Let him see where you came from. Let him understand what shaped you into the people who refused to let him die." Tay was surprised, but he understood. She wanted her son to learn the same lesson Morthal had learned. "That struggle creates strength. He would be welcome, Your Majesty," Tay said. "We would be honored to show him our world." Prince Kael'ren spoke up for the first time, his voice still weak but gaining strength. "I want to go, Mother. I want to understand the people who gave me back my life." The Empress nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. The formal ceremony lasted for hours. Treaties were drafted and signed. The Valthran Crystal Star, the Empire's highest honor, was presented to Tay. It was a physical crystal that contained a sample of the Empress's own blood, glowing eternal gold. In 10,000 years, only 12 had ever been given. As Tay accepted it, the entire room bowed. Even the most skeptical Valthran could not deny that he had earned this honor. When the ceremony finally ended, news of the alliance spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species with faster-than-light communication heard about it. Humanity, the young species that most had dismissed, had just been elevated to equal status with one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. On Earth, celebrations erupted in every city. For the first time, humans felt like they truly belonged among the stars. They weren't just the new kids anymore. They were partners, teachers, healers. That night, Tay sat alone in his quarters, looking at the crystal star in his hands. It glowed softly in the dark, warm to the touch. He thought about his daughter, who he'd lost so many years ago. He thought about how her death had driven him to save others. "I hope I made you proud," he whispered to her memory. A knock came at his door. It was Na. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Too much to process," Tay admitted. "A week ago we were nobody. Now we're representatives of humanity's greatest diplomatic victory." Na sat down next to him. "Do you think it will last, this alliance?" "I think it will," Tay said, "because it's built on something real, not politics or power, but on a mother's love for her son. That's universal. That transcends species." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Na's communication device beeped. She checked it and frowned. "What is it?" Tay asked. "A message from the other side of the galaxy. The Thex Collective. They're an insectoid species," Na read the message aloud. "They've heard about what we did. Their leader is sick. They're asking for help." She looked at Tay. "They say it's urgent, and they say to bring our miracles because their enemies are gathering at their borders." Tay stood up, suddenly feeling the weight of what they had started. Saving Prince Kael'ren hadn't just changed one life. It had changed humanity's role in the galaxy. Now everyone would look to them for help. "Send a reply," Tay said. "Tell them we're coming," Na smiled. "You know we're going to be very busy from now on." "Good," Tay replied. "We became doctors to save lives. Now we get to save them across the galaxy." He looked out the window at the stars. "It's what humans do, we help. Even when it's hard. Even when it's dangerous. Because that's who we are." And so the Valthran Human Medical Alliance began its work, unaware that they were about to change the galaxy forever. 6 months had passed since Prince Kael'ren's recovery. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Valthran Human Medical Alliance had saved 147 lives across 23 different species. Medical ships bearing Earth's blue insignia were now welcomed in ports that had once turned them away. Humanity's reputation had transformed from insignificant newcomers to essential partners. In a conference room aboard the medical station orbiting Earth, Tay reviewed the latest reports. Next to him sat Captain Juan, who had just returned from the Thex Collective. "How did it go?" Tay asked. Juan smiled. "The matriarch is fully recovered. She's calling us Lifebringers now. It's a sacred title in their culture. They've offered us a permanent medical facility in their territory. That's the 5th species to make that offer this month," Na said, entering the room with coffee for everyone. She had been promoted to co-director of the Alliance. "We're going to need more doctors. We're training them as fast as we can," Sewell added. She now ran the Alliance's teaching program, where human and Valthran doctors learned from each other. "We have 300 medical students currently enrolled from 30 different species." Young walked in, looking excited. "You're not going to believe this. The Galactic Council just voted. They're creating a Council of Interstellar Medicine, and they want us to lead it." Everyone stopped what they were doing. The Galactic Council was the most important political body in their part of the galaxy. For them to create a new council specifically about medicine and to put humans in charge was unthinkable 6 months ago. "That's huge," Na whispered. "It's terrifying," Tay corrected. "That's an enormous responsibility, but it's the right thing to do," a new voice said. Everyone turned. Prince Kaelrin stood in the doorway. He looked completely healthy now, his crystalline blood glowing bright blue. He wore simple traveling clothes instead of royal robes. Behind him was a small security detail, but he had insisted on minimal guards for this trip to Earth. "Your Highness," Tay said, standing quickly. "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow." "I arrived early," Kaelrin said with a smile. "I'm excited to see your world." For the next 3 days, Ty and his team showed the Valthran prince around Earth. They took him to the rebuilt cities that had risen from the ashes of nuclear war. They visited museums that documented humanity's near-extinction events, showing him how humans had survived disease, famine, and their own destructive nature. Kaelrin was fascinated by everything. He walked through hospitals where humans received free medical care. He met elderly patients who had survived crystalline blood syndrome, the same disease that had nearly killed him. He spoke with children in schools, learning about Earth's history of constantly fighting and surviving against impossible odds. On the 3rd day, they took him to Seoul, South Korea. Tay brought him to a small memorial in the city center. It listed the names of millions who had died during the crystalline blood syndrome outbreak 70 years ago. "This is why we knew how to save you," Tay said quietly. "Because we lost so many people learning how every name here represents someone who died so that future generations could live." Kaelrin stood silently, reading the names. His blood glowed soft purple with sadness and respect. "Your species has died and been reborn many times. We've come close to extinction at least 6 times in recorded history," Tay confirmed. "Nuclear war, disease, climate disaster. Each time we barely survived. But we learned from every crisis. That's why your medicine is so different from ours," Kaelrin said, understanding dawning in his eyes. "Valthran have been successful for so long that we forgot how to adapt. We never needed to. But humans, you've had to adapt or die over and over." "Exactly," Tay said. "That's not something to be proud of, really. We would have preferred an easier path. But it taught us never to give up. Even when something seems impossible, we try anyway, because we've seen the impossible happen too many times to stop believing." That evening, Prince Kaelrin gave a speech at the United Earth Assembly. Thousands attended in person, and billions watched across the planet. "I came to Earth thinking I would see a primitive world," Kaelrin said honestly. "Instead, I found something that humbled me. I found a species that has fallen more times than most species have ever stood. And every single time you got back up." He paused, looking out at the crowd. "My people, the Valthran, have been strong for 10,000 years. But we were strong because we never truly fell. You are strong because you fall and rise again and again. That is a strength we must learn. That is a strength the entire galaxy must learn." The crowd applauded, but Kaelrin raised his hand. "I spoke with my mother, Empress Liara Von, this morning. She has authorized me to make an announcement. The Valthran Empire is investing 50 billion credits into expanding the medical alliance. We are building a joint teaching hospital here in orbit of Earth, where doctors from every species can come to learn. Not just Valthran medicine, but human medicine too. The hospital will be called the Kaelrin Hope Memorial Institute." The crowd erupted in cheers. Tay felt tears in his eyes. This was bigger than he had ever imagined. Over the next months, the hospital began construction. It would be the largest medical facility in the galaxy, with technology from 100 different species all working together. Human doctors would teach there. Valthran physicians would teach there. Everyone would learn from everyone. Empress Liara Von visited Earth for the hospital's foundation ceremony. It was the first time a Valthran empress had ever visited a human world. She stood with Tay watching the construction begin. You gave me back my son, she said quietly, but you also gave me something else. Wisdom. For 3 centuries I ruled believing that strength meant never needing others. My son's illness taught me that strength means knowing when to accept help. Your Majesty, Tay said, we're all stronger together than we are alone. That's true for individuals and it's true for species. The Empress's blood glowed warm gold. I hope other species learn that lesson more easily than I did. A year after saving Prince Kael'ren, Tay and his original team gathered for dinner at a small restaurant in Seoul. They ate bulgogi and drank soju, reminiscing about that terrifying day when everything changed. Do you ever think about how different things would be if we'd failed? Na asked. Every day, Tay admitted. If Kael'ren had died, humanity might have been blamed. Instead, we're respected across the galaxy. We got lucky, Sul said. We were skilled, Young corrected. We were both, Juan decided.
Skill gave us a chance.
But we needed some luck too. Na raised her glass. To luck then, Tay shook his head. No, to the stubbornness of humanity. They all laughed, but Juan had another toast. To a mother's love, which is the same across all species. And to never giving up, Sul added. Tay looked at his friends, his team, the people who had risked everything to save one life. He thought about how that one life had changed everything. How one act of compassion had built bridges between species that had never spoken before. To all of that, Tay said, and to the future, whatever it brings. They drank together, and through the restaurant window they could see the night sky. Up there, in orbit, the Kael'ren Hope Memorial Institute was taking shape. A monument to cooperation, a place where all species could learn from each other. High above Earth, the station's construction continued. Workers from 20 different species labored side by side. Valthran engineers worked with human technicians. Thex builders cooperated with species they had been fighting just months ago. The medical emergency had done what politics never could. It had brought everyone together. On the station's growing structure, a plaque was being installed. It would be the first thing visitors saw when they arrived. The words were written in 50 languages, but they all said the same thing. In memory of the day we learned that miracles come not from superior technology, but from refusing to accept death as inevitable, dedicated by the Valthran Empire and humanity partners in life. And below that, a simple statement that would define the new era. We are strongest when we help each other survive. Back in the restaurant, Tay received a message on his communicator. He read it and smiled. What is it? Tao asked. Another request for help. The Korvax Union. Their genetic engineers accidentally created a virus and now it's spreading through their population. Can we help them? Saul asked. Probably, Tay said. We've dealt with human-made viruses before. We know how to clean up our mistakes. Sounds like they need to learn that too. Young laughed. You know we're going to be doing this for the rest of our lives, right? Species after species asking for help. Good, Tay said firmly. We became doctors to save lives. Now we get to save them across the galaxy. He stood up, energized, despite the late hour. It's what humans do. We help, even when it's hard, even when it's dangerous, even when everyone tells us it's impossible. Because we've learned that impossible just means nobody's tried hard enough yet. His team stood with him. They had started as a small medical delegation that nobody respected. Now they were the founders of an alliance that was changing the galaxy, and they were just getting started, because that's what humans do. They see someone suffering and they help. They see a problem and they solve it. They see death and they fight it with everything they have. They fall down. They get back up. They adapt. They survive. They thrive. And now they were teaching the galaxy to do the same. As Tay and his team left the restaurant, heading back to their offices to plan their next mission, Earth rotated slowly below them. A small blue planet that had nearly destroyed itself a dozen times. A world that had learned, through pain and struggle, the greatest lesson of all. Life is precious. Every single life. And it's worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds seem. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but something far more powerful. Hope, compassion, and the stubborn refusal to give up on anyone. It was enough to change everything.